On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger long. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk,
I'm going to begin in 1 minute.
a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
All that we grow.
I'd like to welcome everybody here. It's our council meeting, the last one for January. Just a little bit of housekeeping, if I may. Again, Judy Ann McCauley is here volunteering tonight for our broadcast. On that note, I just want to remind everybody that our council meetings are televised and they are web streamed. I have made sure that my cell phone is on the silence mode so as to not interrupt the proceedings of the meeting, so we appreciate that. Council, there's one thing proposed to be changed on our agenda. It's very minor in nature. It's the consideration to move the Van Etten drain under the public meeting from 5 o'clock to a 3 o'clock start, and the reason is because that's when it was advertised that it would take place, is 3 o'clock, and that information was provided to the property owners assessed by that drainage system. I'd like to deal with that first, if I may. For your consideration, it's been moved by Councillor Oliver and seconded by Councillor Geisens that the agenda be amended through considering the staff report respecting the Venado Drain Report at 3 p.m. in accordance with the notice provided to the assessed property owners on the drain. Any discussion on moving that item forward? Call the question. Those in favor, please. That is carried. I thank you for that. Thank you. Item number 1 talks about ceremonial activities. There aren't any ceremonial activities, but we do have a very brief announcement relating to something of that nature. Lee, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you.
Through the Mayor to Council, as reported previously to Council, we received the Ontario Public Works Association 2017 Public Works Project of the Year Award, Historic Restoration Preservation in the $10 to $15 million category to Norfolk County for the Delhi Wastewater Treatment Plant in Delhi. I will be passing this around so Council can see it, and it will be appropriately hung with some of the other awards that we've won.
I don't know, but I bet I could answer that. Well, that's certainly great news, and congratulations, Lee, and thank you for bringing that to our attention. I haven't seen Councillor Height. I don't know if he will be here. He hasn't said anything, but he may be coming in before too long. We shall see. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest to declare? And if so, you can declare it now and state the nature thereof. I don't think there's anything in here that... No presentations. Item 4, closed session. We will have one later this evening. Councillor Oliver, if you just, I'll see it later, or if you want to give it to staff, I'll have a look later. Thank you. Okay, let's get down to business then. Council, I will ask that you turn to the Venado report on page 75, please, of your agenda package. I will now officially open the public meeting. It is held under the Drainage Act. This meeting is for the purpose of reviewing the engineer's report on the municipal drain. This specific drain is not related to a petition. I'd like to remind the participants that we are not here tonight to discuss any of the assessed costs, as that process will occur later at the Drainage Court of Revision. So we're not going to discuss assessed costs if you have been assessed because of this drainage application. Let's go to staff report, PW 1807. This is the Venator Drainage Report for consideration by this council. Okay, well, we'll start with staff. Lee, do you wish to give us an update on this, please, and thank you?
Certainly, through the mayor, before you is the report for the Van Etter Drain. Council will recall that it was before us previously. When it was here, it was referred back to staff for additional meetings with one of the people who spoke with respect to that. That meeting has taken place. Nothing has changed in the engineer's report as a result of that. There was also some concerns that perhaps one of the people who had signed the petition was not fully aware of that, of all the implications. We had, as we had advised council at that time, we had met with them. They were well aware of it. We spoke with them again and have received written confirmation that they do wish to proceed with this matter and that they're well apprised of the situation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone in attendance this evening first that wishes to add or remove your names from the petition? Now is the time to let us know. Yeah, okay. It's not on there, but those that wish to speak in favor or in general? Thank you. I didn't proofread this. I didn't have time. Any questions from members of council to Lee? Councilor Broughton, please.
Just very quickly, Mayor Luke, if I may, through to Lee. Lee, this gentleman, I'm trying to remember his name, Capel, I guess it was. And I believe it was his family that was here last time?
Through the mayor to council, no. Mr. Capel passed away during this process, and his wife is the sole occupant, owner of the property. She and both of them had signed the original petition, and she is the woman that we've been speaking with respect to that, as she is now the sole petitioner with respect to that property.
Okay.
The other people that were speaking here that evening were adjacent property owners.
And they're now happy?
I'm not sure that I want to characterize how they feel. I believe that they understand the process. We've met with them and talked to them about how everything works. They had advised us at the time at the council meeting that perhaps they weren't as informed as they would like to be, and so we met with them again to go over it yet again with them.
Okay, and my last question is, and I know we're being assessed, did I read $31,000 on the total drain? Can you just clarify for me what work does that involve on, was it Regional Road 45 or County Road 45?
It's Norfolk County Road 45,
right,
as well as a special assessment assigned to Norfolk County Road 45. So we have the drainage from 45 plus the culvert. As council is aware, through the Drainage Act, we pay 100% of the cost of the road crossings.
So that's to be replaced then, is it, the crossing?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions from this council? Not at this time. I'll proceed then. Are there any people in attendance who wish to speak to this engineer's report? Yes, sir, if you come down and there's a little gray button there, you can push this talk, please, and give us your name and thank you.
Yes, my name is Peter Christoph. I live close to Ms. Capel's place, about 500 yards east on 45 and concession for ENR. And I'd just like to officially, on the record, just say that we've met with the representative that the engineer was talking about, and we still disagree with the assessment, but nevertheless, I understand, according to the Drainage Act, everything must go on. And I just want to formally address the council saying that we're still against it, but yes, I understand the situation and so forth. And my sister clearly enunciated our reasons for disagreeing with the whole process before, so there's no reason to go through that. And that's basically everything I want to say.
Any questions for Peter, council members? Peter, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you being here, sir.
Thank you.
Is there any other resident present who wishes to speak on this engineering report? Yes, sir, come on down, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Angus Capel. I'm Brent Capel's son. I just wanted to go on record saying I know and I'm aware of this project, and we still promote it and endorse it. That's all. I don't know if you'd like to add my name to that petition or if it even matters, but we are well aware of Dad's wishes when he got started this, so just wanted to say that.
Any questions from council to Mr. Capel? Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishes to speak on this drainage report? Just want to push the microphone there, the little blue button. Yes, sir, your name, please? No, you're not, we'll fix you up here. There you go.
Thank you. Glenn Haskell's the name. I don't totally understand what's going on with this Venator drain. Is it going to continue the way you wanted to fix it, or is it being squashed, or I haven't
Okay.
understood.
You're not sure what the outcome is here, right?
Yeah, I'm
Lee, please, if you would respond to that.
Certainly, through the mayor to the deputation. The Drainage Act has a very specific process that needs to be followed. At this point, there is a petition that has been received that has been deemed to be a valid petition, therefore we're proceeding. We're at the stage now where the engineer's report, which is what's recommending the approvals, is being reviewed by council. If council accepts it, it goes on to the next step, which is a provisional bylaw and a notice of the Court of Revision. The Court of Revision, all the assessments can be discussed, etc. But this is, the purpose of the meeting this evening is to accept the engineer's report, which is recommending improvements to the Venator drain.
which is recommending either go forward or not.
It's recommending that a project go forward to do improvements to the drain.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Because the drain doesn't need any improvement. It's been fine all these years. So, doesn't need any improvement at all. It's the lower house that put the complaint in or whatever. If it had been built up properly on the ground, wouldn't be a problem. There's nothing wrong with our drain. And we shouldn't be throwing all that money away working on it. It's plain and simple.
Thank you. Any questions for this gentleman, council? Thank you, sir. Anyone else present wishes to speak to this drainage report? Hearing none. Council members, anything further from staff? I would like a mover and seconder to close this public meeting. Walls has moved, Geisens has seconded that we now close this public meeting on the drain. Those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. The staff recommendation, council, as you know, is before you on page 75 at the beginning of the report. I have in my hand the exact recommendation as worded. I have a mover, Councillor Black, but I would need a seconder to put this on the floor for discussion. Councillor Brunton. I will go over it quickly. Councillor Black has moved. Councillor Brunton has seconded that the staff report 1807, the Venator Drain Report, for consideration by council be received as information, and that a provisional bylaw be prepared to adopt the Venator Drain Report dated November the 22nd, 2017, prepared by Esprit Professional Engineers, and further that staff be directed to send a copy of the provisional bylaw and a notice of the Court of Revision to all required property owners, and further that the first sitting of the Court of Revision be scheduled in accordance with the provisions of the Drainage Act, and further that upon the successful completion of the required appeal process, the Drainage Superintendent act on behalf of council to continue with the Drainage Act procedures and make all the required arrangements in accordance with the Norfolk County purchasing policy for the construction of the proposed drainage work. Discussion on this motion. I hear no discussion. I'll call the question. Those in favor? And that is carried. Councillor Height, good to see you. Do you have any disclosure of interest on tonight's matters?
No, I don't.
Thank you, sir. Nice to see you. Let's go back to the beginning of the agenda then, if you will. Our first, our only report, staff report this evening is staff report CS 18-04. It's about the recreational facilities council subcommittee's recommendations. I am going to page 7. You ready to start things, Mr. Cridlin?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Through the Mayor to County Council, I'll start off with probably a little longer introduction to a report than I usually do. Staff report CS 1804 Recreational Facilities Subcommittee is basically, I'll call it a next step report. As you know, the subcommittee that was put together this fall to do the 5 urban areas to collect public information, and two other meetings since has wrapped up. And at December 11th meeting, the subcommittee adopted the following resolution, which gave staff direction. And that was a staff report back on January 30th, 2018, with a staff report which consolidates the committee's recommendations, the public's input, the recreational master plan verbiage, and advise the possible next steps, and also recommend what staff could do internally and what we'd need external help for at that point. So the report, I think, is laid out pretty clearly to those, to that resolution. So I will start with first the 8 subcommittee recommendations. And these are on page, I'm going to say 2 and 3 of 8 of the report, and 8 and 9 of the agenda, whichever way you want to go. It's not to say that staff did not disagree with all the recommendations. However, recommendation number 1 was put forward, which is that recommend that Simcoe Senior Center be replaced. Staff have moved that recommendation forward in this report. Recommendation 2, the recommendation that a new recreational pool be constructed. Staff have moved that that recommendation ahead of this report. And also, if you go to the bottom of the list, number 7, committee recommended that Simcoe be the preferred location for a multi-use facility. Staff have moved that one forward. And number 8, that the committee recommends staff to investigate land that is up to approximately 25 acres within the urban area of Simcoe to be available to build a multi-use facility. Staff have put that one forward. Number 3, which is the committee recommend that we build a new facility to replace the recreation or the rec center arena with the option of twin padding. Staff haven't brought that forward. Not saying it's not necessary, but we're going to, as we move forward with my explanation report, staff thought it was better that recommendation 3 waited until we actually had land in mind that we could build on. Staff feel that land is key. It's also the size of the land is key in what we push forward. So as I move through, recommendation number 4 talks about other meeting rooms and administration of the facility, including the Sports Hall of Fame. Again, we just thought this was a little premature until we had some land decided on. Recommendation 5 was building a multi-purpose gymnasium, including an indoor track to be constructed in Norfolk County. Again, until land is secured, staff thought that was a little premature. And the last one, number 6, depending on the location, the new facility, twinning opportunities with Talbot Gardens be entertained. Again, staff aren't against it, but we figure we need the land before that recommendations move forward. So next, we'll move to the public input. And through the urban center roadshows, I'll call them for lack of a better term, the public did support renewed or upgraded recreational facilities in Simcoe. That came through in both the public presentations as well as the written presentations and the online survey we had. They also supported combining some of these facilities in a location in Simcoe, and they ranked a pool, twin pad, a walking path, senior center, and gymnasium as high on the list. They also, another thing that was heard loud and clear by the public was they're also concerned what would be done with the old facilities if we did go to a multi-use facility. And also the public was quite concerned about funding possibilities that that Norfolk County had to do as much work as they could to look for both federal, provincial, and private money to move this forward. Next was I tied in the recreational plan, and the recreational plan has verbiage. It talked about the senior center combining with Talbot and Simcoe Recreational Center for a multi-use facility. So everything we got from the public and the recommendations of the subcommittee match what the recreational master plan was saying. It also contains verbiage that Norfolk County move ahead further investigating a multi-use facility or in a multi-use facility instead of upgrading some existing facilities, which, again, this is what this whole process has taken us to. When it came to next steps, this is probably the big part of this report tonight, that staff are recommending that council move forward with option number 8, which is to look for land availability within the Simcoe urban limits. And what staff are recommending here, council can choose to take the recommendation or of course come up with their own, is that staff be sent away tonight and come back to council with an in-camera report sometime in the future, as soon as we can, and bring in 5 or 6 parcels of land, whichever meet the qualifications we need. We will work with our planning staff to make sure that zoning isn't an issue, or if it is, how we get around it. We'll also work with our public work folks here on servicing of the land. So when we come with the next step, we can kind of lay these properties out, and council can have a decisions on which ones are worth moving forward and which ones we don't move forward with investigating. So we'll try to have as much information coming forward that we can as far as cost of servicing them and other, accessibility, size, that sort of thing. The part we'll be missing, we still won't know in the case of private lands what the cost will be, and that will come out of, we're hoping come out of the in-camera session where will staff or a mix of staff, council, however you want to put it together, will be able to go out and approach some of these individuals in that case. The next part of the report was what could be done internal or external. So we're saying that we can handle everything inside here as far as looking for land availability, bring it back. But there will be a time when we do need to go to an external consultant, as we had recommended back in the June report. And we still think that the consultant would play a big part in everything from, some research and conduct some financial availability of a multi-use compared to fixing up our existing to make sure it's there. They can also talk about phasing. They can look at the piece of property we have and whether we land at 25 acres or 30 or 21, what could be on. They could look at stacking, for instance, if a senior home is there, could it be in the top floor? And they would play with all of that sort of stuff that staff don't feel we have the expertise. They could also look into possible community partners. And again, all funding sources as far as private and both senior level governments. They could all, at this point, somewhere along the lines too, we would need the outside services for design drawings, site layouts, that sort of thing. And before I just remind council that there still is the $50,000 from the legacy fund that was set aside for this in 2017. So I have checked with finance, and when we get to that part of using an external consultant, we have the $50,000 still marking that. So it's not as if we'll be asking for any money. Well, we'll see how big that RFP is at the time, but up to there, I'll leave it at that, turn it over to county council for any questions they may have.
And just before I get to council, some of Bill's staff is here, some key players in this, and I appreciate them being there. Todd Shoemaker, Susie Ray, and Catherine Doherty. Thank you, folks, for being here this afternoon. Just wanted to mention who they were. I'll start with Councillor Black and then Councillor Wells, followed by Councillor Oliver, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor Luke, and through you to Bill. Bill, thank you very much. Seems like a very concise report to me, one that I'm ready to move forward on. But just got an email from concerned individual seeing in the report, I guess, or somewhere, that the proposal is for 6 lanes and 25 meters in the swimming pool, and that the existing is 5 and 25 meters. And my thinking is that this is just a preliminary proposal that when we get further along, we'll make those determinations?
Through the Mayor to Councillor Black. No, that is correct. If you refer to the page 1 of the report, we just talk about a new recreational pool. That's the recommendation put forward. And I do agree, I've probably confused things when I had written staff's comments in on each recommendation. I actually mentioned a 25-meter, 6-lane. If anything, I probably should have said a minimum of 6 lanes.
Okay.
Our present pool is just shy of 25 meters, and that rules out competitions and things. But yes, that's a very preliminary comment that we'll get to in design. But
So what is the Olympic size? Is it 25 meters? Is that what it is?
Through the mayor, I just had to check here. It's 50, so it's twice the size of the pool we have. And I know it's been talked around Olympic-sized pool, the terminology is being used. And again, we'll see when we drill down if Olympic size is what we need, or if it's a full 25 with 6, 8, 9 lanes, what we can come up with.
Okay, and the survey, did you mention the survey and the results of the survey? Just briefly?
Yes, I did. I mentioned.
So, and that it pretty well supports your recommendations and goes along with what you're proposing here.
Through the Mayor to Councillor Black, yeah. That was the thing where the recommendations of the subcommittee, as well as the verbiage in the recreational plan, as well as the public input and the surveys they filled out, all bring us to this point to keep moving ahead and investigating a multi-use facility within Simcoe.
And one component that you've mentioned on page 11 that I think is very important that you've included, and hopefully you'll follow up on this, is that while you're assessing not just the recreational needs, that you'll, and I can see it probably being done more by the special advisor to look at the environmental and the socioeconomic considerations, or assessing them at each site. So you're putting value on that, not just the recreational needs, but those other 3 components.
Through the Mayor to Councillor Black. No, that is correct. It isn't written in the report. I guess in my discussions I missed it. But when we come back with the next report with the land parcels, staff are hoping to give council as much information on each land parcel. And yes, those factors will play into that. So they have as much information as they need at that time to move ahead, to shortlist, I'll call it.
Okay. And just, you said this before, and I know it's a concern from the public. We're possibly looking at maybe a $40 million, $45 million. We don't know at this point, but the amount of money required to fix versus the needed money for Norfolk County's investment into a hub, what is the difference, or how do they relate? How are they compared?
Through the Mayor to Councillor Black. I'm not sure if I can answer that right now, because we talk about a number of items that we would put in a multi-use facility. We do have the numbers of what it will cost in the next decade to keep our facilities going. But I think, again, not to prolong, I think we have to take the next steps. We fine-tune on what we're going to put in this.
Okay, I agree with you. We need to have the plan a little bit more fully fledged out before we can make that determination. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wells, you're up, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for the report, Bill. I think it's an excellent report. I almost read it and almost understood everything. Thank you very much for that, and that's a challenge in itself. I looked at your recommendations, or your analysis, and I looked at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and those 8 items, and I understood most of them that we're going to wait and see what, if we approve the consultant, that we will look at where we go. Number 2, you took out, and I was confused. Will number 2, the pool, be part of is the intent to be part of the multi-complex, or will we have the multi-complex facility and the pool separate? I wasn't quite sure as I read your report.
Through the chair to Councillor Wells, yeah, the subcommittee recommendation they came up that a new recreational pool is to be constructed. With the public input and user frustration with the pool in the present age, staff are agreeing that yes, we do need a new pool. And again, as same as I answered Councillor Black, we would assume it would go in the multi-use facility, but we've got to go a little farther so we know what land we have and what would go in. What the committee has said is they do recommend that Norfolk County builds a new recreational pool.
but you will not be building a new recreational pool until we have the whole enchilada. We're not going ahead and building the pool and then looking at a multi-purpose facility.
Through the chair to Councillor, no, that's correct.
Yeah,
We have to
okay.
get all
That's
of our
all I need to
information
know, Mr.
together.
Mayor.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and I agree with my colleagues. I think, Bill, the report is a good one, and I'm certainly going to support it, although I hope we can perhaps add a couple of things to move it along. I have 2 or 3 quick questions, if you don't mind. First of all, Councillor Black raised the question about the reference in the body of the report to a 6-lane pool, and I appreciate your response. Said it could have been a minimum of 6. How would staff feel if council chose today to amend the recommendation in the report to a relative to a pool of a minimum of 8? Because I think that was a very strong message we got from the public. To do otherwise is essentially just to rebuild exactly what we've got, and we know that isn't satisfactory. So would it be a problem if we were to say we want a minimum of an 8-lane pool?
Through the chair to Councillor Oliver. I'll look at Todd and Susie, but our present pool, if I'm understanding it, they shift the lanes so the full lanes are smaller.
Yeah, I know.
So it's actually maybe a 4.5.
Yep.
So it is, I came across the stat when I was putting the report together that in the early 90s, there were 100 bathers. If they hit a 100 bather day in that pool, that was a red letter day for the town of Simcoe in the pool. Talking to staff now, we regularly hit 300 users a day, so it shows there is a lot of use in the pool, and I personally don't see anything wrong at this point to say a minimum of 8 lanes,
Okay.
and then we can fine tune that as we go along.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. My second question, and I am going to support, although I was puzzled when I first read it, but I'm going to support the idea of looking for land availability as a next step. Because I think I understand in my head, regardless of how many of the components of a multi-use facility we might ultimately choose to put there, i.e. the footprint, the big part of the land demand is going to be parking, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we need to perhaps assess parcels anywhere from, who knows, 15 acres up to 25 acres, which would be available. My only question on that, Bill, where it references within the urban Simcoe area, does that mean the urban boundary of Simcoe as defined in our OP presently, and would that preclude consideration of anything even 1 foot beyond the urban boundary as it appears now on our official plan mapping? I'm just concerned that we might prevent ourselves from seeing a possibility of a parcel right on the edge, so to speak, of the urban boundary, but outside it today.
Through the chair to Councillor Oliver. It was my understanding in talking to planning staff with the OP going through the final approvals that we should stay within the urban limits at this time.
Okay,
and that's their best recommendation. Now, I'm not sure how that works with council if they feel different, but our first stab would be to be within those limits, so there were no zoning, no OP
Yeah.
amendments or anything like that. Because
Having gone through the OP review process, I'm not surprised to hear planning staff have recommended it, and I guess I'm okay with that if we can find something within the present urban boundary line, wherever that is, and it meets the needs, it'll fit the bill. So okay, I'm okay with that. My last question at this point, Bill, is regarding timing. Again, I know you said that if this recommendation is approved today, staff will go away and as quickly as possible come back with a closed session report on land options. As you know, we always do to you. What is as soon as possible? When will be the earliest date that you can do it? And if you can't give us one, can we pin you down to one as part of our approval today?
Through the chair to Councillor Oliver, I believe in the report because with other groups, depending on public works for the servicing and planning, I was thinking it was April, and I do apologize. Actually, on page 6 of the report, it does say first paragraph, be completed and presented by April or May of 2018. So I would say April would be as soon as we could get anything back.
Okay, so if we were to put by April 30th, can you tolerate that?
To the chair, to Councillor Oliver, I think that's
Okay.
doable. It's
All
in our
right, thank
timeline.
you. I'll wait and see what others feel about that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, just a comment before I go to Councillor Height. In looking at this report, I don't think tonight, I believe it's a little, but council can do as they choose. It's premature to start talking about, well, how long or wide will the pool be? How high will the gym be? How long will the twin path, how many dress rooms, how much square footage are we going? I think we need to consult with the users when that time comes as to exactly what they want. But again, you can put anything you like into the motion, but I think this is pretty general, a good step that we have here to move forward. Councillor Height, that's just my thoughts here, rather than trying to, this evening, to design any specific facility. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. I'm on page 12 here, where we speak on the internal and external expertise, where we'll be actually looking for some people outside. Now, typically, when I go and buy something, I usually check my bank account. And in this instance here, we're looking for something, yet there's no check to the bank account. It says here that someone will have to be hired to complete a financial viability assessment. So, Mr. Cridlin, if you could, how are we, it appears to me we have the cart before the horse. And why would you make that recommendation? We're looking for 25 acres with $0, I'm assuming.
Through the chair to Councillor Height, I think that is in there because it was in the first RFP that went out, and we know what it'll cost to keep our existing facilities going. And I go back to the land, if we do end up with if we're limited to a 15-acre parcel, these folks will be able to tell us, we'll know what the space on and what the costing is on that. And I believe Finance has commented in the report that they don't have the expertise either to tie some of this together. So of everything that the consultant will do, when we decide on a piece of land and say, here's what we want on this, they will be able to pull the numbers together. And I think that's important because up to now, we don't know the cost of what we're going to build. We don't know what we're going to put on it until we know what we have for land and what's possible. If hopefully I've answered your question.
Right, but I'm assuming that we don't know what we're going to have on it, but it'll all come down to money. We could build a $300 million facility, but not if we don't have the funds. So for me, Mr. Mayor, I feel looking for land while we don't have a plan isn't quite right with me. So,
Chair to Councillor Height, maybe I can help. The report that'll come on April 30th, if Councillor Oliver's resolution goes through, that'll be the time that council will say, okay, we're interested in parcel A, B, or C, and that's when we'll go out, and we won't, I don't imagine we'll get direction from council to buy that land right now without knowing. I'm talking to Shelley Darlington and purchasing. There would be some type of an agreement where in the next 2 years, in the next year, if you're willing to sell your land, and we would put a holder on it, and then we would bring the other information together. So it doesn't put council in a corner at all. They're able to say, well, we know the land value is X, and we know what we want is X, and that's our outcome. It's way too much, or it's very doable. So.
okay. And my next question was, you had emailed us a survey that was completed. Am I correct? There was about 600 people that filled out that survey?
Through the chair to the mayor, yeah, I believe the clerk's office had sent that out.
It was around 600, Andy? Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It was about 680, I believe.
Pardon me?
In the ballpark of 680.
680. So roughly we've had about 1% of the input from Norfolk County residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Columbus.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Bill, we had talked about this earlier this week. It's with respect to page 10 at the top there, number 5, recommendation. Recommend the building of a multi-purpose gymnasium, including an indoor track to be constructed in Norfolk County. A, staff agree on a multi-purpose gymnasium, including an indoor track, was deemed a priority. However, staff suggests this recommendation wait until a location and land availability study has been completed. So that tells me right there, being that we're looking at land availability, that we're looking at Simcoe for this gymnasium. When that statement. So just as you know, and we've heard it all loud and clear at the meetings and I even passed something around here. There is a group in Delhi looking to have a gymnasium attached, a double gym and walking track attached to the Delhi District Secondary School. And there is no double gym in the town of Delhi. I understand that there are a few of them in Simcoe. I think it's Holy Trinity and Simcoe Comp, and even perhaps a public school. So where do you see this going? Like, why are we holding up a potential project in another community when we have to wait? Is it firm that the double gym is going to Simcoe? I guess that's the question.
Through the chair to Councillor Columbus. No, I guess the good and the bad at this point is there is no decision on what would go in a multi-use facility. I mentioned a few items, the public has mentioned a few items, the master plan mentioned a few items, and I think, well, I know why staff had not put that recommendation to move forward. Again, it's based on land, because if we could get the land here and incorporate everything in Simcoe, that would be one plan, and if not, then the gymnasium is something that could be in another part of Simcoe or another part of the county. So I think it leaves it open.
Okay, I hope it leaves it open, because there's been some time and energy put into the other community. Just, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to mention too, the report talks about a $20 million expense over 25 years would be 1.9% on the tax bill. And as far as, I know we talked about an election coming up and there could be dollars coming, but I don't think we'll be ready for that. So I can't see any federal or provincial dollars coming down the pipe too soon. And I just wanted to mention that, you know, it's all about the money, which we don't have anywhere in reserves for this. Thanks.
Councillor Brunton, please.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. I read the report, and very good report. I guess it summarizes all the input we've had from the road show. But go to page 13 in your agenda. If you look at it, second to last paragraph at the bottom of the page talks about, I think we'll call it priorities. And with or without a hub or anything, to me the priority from day one has been the senior center. That is a very important part of maybe a hub or maybe a separate facility. We don't know. And I'm not sure what the feelings are with the seniors down at the Pond Street facility. The other thing I'd like to bring up is that I'm not interested right at the present in land. I've said it and I'll say it again. I want to go out. I think we said we had $50,000 in our kitty from last year for this project. I'd like to see us put an RFP for an architect to provide us with some schematic drawings, preliminary drawings for everything you want to put in this facility, and a cost estimate to do that. And then we work from there forward. If we're going to do a one-piece hub, if you want to call it that, or a facility with everything in it, and who knows what will be in it, because we seem to go around in circles. We've talked about twinning this or building that. I, quite frankly, do not like the idea of tearing any of the facilities down, but if we're going to build a brand new hub with everything in it, I'd like to get rid of these other facilities, because it's going to cost us a lot of money to run everything, plain and simple. I would like to see us spend some money to hire an architectural firm through an RFP, and maybe we can come up with a facility that's, who knows, $50 million. I wish it was in the thousands, but it's not, in the millions. Be a double rink, or whatever, and get a cost estimate for that. And to me, that's the starting point, and that'll tell you exactly how much parking you need once we decide what we're going to put in it. And if we decide we don't want a gymnasium or we don't want a senior center in that facility, that cuts down on the parking and so forth. And you should be able to plop that anywhere you want. It's like building a house. You get a set of house drawings, you can, as long as you find the land that you want to put it on that'll fit it, away you go. To go and look for land now, I have no idea what we're even going to build. So it doesn't make sense to me. Anyways, I would like to take that approach and get on with getting a firm kind of idea what we're looking at. I think Councillor Height hit a good point there when he said that, you know, we've gone through this exercise, and unfortunately, we got 65,000 people in Norfolk County, and we're dealing with 680 people trying to drive this process. I think we need some concrete ideas what the seniors want. Do they want to go in a hub or do they want to stand alone? How big a pool do we want? Do we want that to be standalone? So let's do the hub, get a price, sit on it, and again, the mayor indicated, I think several times, we don't have the money, but at least it's a starting point. So anyways, thank you.
Okay, I'm interested at this point in questions to staff on the report. We'll get into the debate if we get a motion after a question period. Councillor Geisens, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have no problem with a hub, but I do have, when it comes to location, all of Norfolk is going to end up paying for some of this somewhere along the line. And to me, the only thing that is going to work and that I am going to agree to would be something to the west end of Simcoe. And I was hoping that somewhere along the line, but planning staff have kind of kiboshed what I wanted to do, is to do it somewhere out on either West Street or something like that. It's only about 25 minutes from Langton and some of the other. These people are going to pay for it just like everybody else in the rest of the county. And to me, that's what's going to make my vote one way or the other. I don't know where we're going, whether we're going to get the funding or anything like that. But like I said, it should be for all of them. And theoretically, if you put it on the east end of Simcoe, that's not for the rest of Norfolk County. Let's not forget, we talked about the west. Well, now is the time to at least have the same as the rest of the county does. Thank you.
Well, I thank you for those questions, and I guess I'm going to hear you now. I'm going to hear you later. Are there any other of those questions? Councillor Sonnenberg.
This proposed 25 acres, is it realistic to think that there is a 25-acre parcel within the town limits of Simcoe?
Through the chair to Councillor Sonnenberg. Yeah, early indications when we got looking at the GIS, we have a few properties that I think would fit the bill.
Councillor Oliver.
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor, for letting me speak a second time. Just on that point, though, before I make my point, it does say up to, so I gather you won't only look for parcels that are 25. There may be parcels that might be 19, 18, 21, whatever chunk of vacant land or otherwise you can get. Is that correct?
The chair to Councillor Oliver, yes. The master plan actually talks about 30 plus. This recommendation was 25, and I think up to.
Okay.
And I can be honest, we're going to bring pretty well any available piece of land that is close in that, and council will have a decision to say too big, too small, that sort of stuff.
Okay.
It'll be your decision, but we're going to bring as many options as we can.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Mayor, I do have a question, and the last two speakers sort of touched on it, and it is, I guess I'll refer to page 6 of the report, page 12 of our agenda, again, the financial services comments. And Mr. Mayor, you'll cut me off here if you think I'm getting on thin ice that I shouldn't be, but relative to costing of such a facility, and even if ultimately the external consultant that we go to, who will be charged with the responsibility of determining financial viability, i.e. both in terms of capital and operating, at what point, Mr. Mayor, do we as council put on the table the option of borrowing money from our legacy fund to fund our share of such a facility? Sooner or later, we have to be able to talk about that. And I know we're going to be seeing a report shortly about what to do with the legacy fund in terms of investment options. This, however, is something that within the next 6 months is going to be a big decision point, I hope. When can that be part of the discussion? That's my question to staff.
The starting point is we work for you, you control the agenda, and if you want to talk about that today, that is what will happen. I mean, at the end of the day, it's your decision to make. What I'd like to suggest is that this report is a result of a lot of thinking from urban planners, from people who know how to manage real estate, from facilities, from public works, from Parks and Rec, from your whole leadership team. And it's a huge undertaking, but there is a reason why we're coming to you with land first. Because we've heard from 2 members of council in the last 15 minutes have espoused the importance of location, and how that's key and core to the decision. The reason we're coming to you with land first is if we can identify a location that does or doesn't get council approval. At some point in time, in theory, for this to go forward, there will be a place you will agree upon and settle upon. With that, a bigger or smaller parcel can mean a facility that's 2 or 3 stories tall versus 1. We always think as if you can only build on the ground, you can only build out, not up. There are plenty of jurisdictions in Ontario that build upwards. So that changes the price of the same thing stacked, but in a smaller parcel, also maybe the land costs less, or there are different variables there. What I would like to suggest to this council as a whole is that the money is utterly critical for long-term success, but in its own way, it's the last thing you should think about. We need a project that is defined as including A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You will determine what A, B, C, D, E, F, G are. They are a seniors complex or not. They are a 50-meter pool with 8 lanes or not. They are whatever items they include, you will ultimately determine. We will have a parcel of land. At that point, it's right for us to start getting some architectural renderings, some different proposals at what different facilities look like for you to have real choice. But at the end of the day, we need zoned land that we own or have an option to buy with a price that we know what that, to pretend, we have to go forward pretending we're financing 100% of this project, and only then ultimately determine how much other parties can contribute and where and how we will fund our portion of that total. So you have every right to discuss money up front, but we'll never know how much that is until we get everything else in order. And we believe, after a lot of thought and consideration, that the best way forward is to determine land first, exact content second, design third, and then financing fourth. And that will get us, working diligently, we can get you to a point where decisions can be made in that order. And that's why Mr. Cridland and his team have written this fairly fulsome report with specific recommendations, because we do have a path forward. We're happy to adjust the path to one that you prefer, but respectfully, I would suggest that whether we're going to borrow the money from ourselves or from someone else, because certainly we don't have it just sitting in an accessible bank account, it's not immaterial. It's relevant to the whole cost and the cost of borrowing. But in and of itself, that's sort of the last piece of the puzzle, because we have to have all the boundaries of the puzzle filled in first. And then it's the center, but the center is last. What's the fastest way to do a puzzle?
What's your wishes? Councillor Columbus, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Bill, a question. If we don't go ahead with a multi-purpose hub like within the town of Simcoe, what is Plan B? What do you think Plan B would be to make sure that the seniors complex gets moving, plus the pool?
Through the chair to Councillor Columbus, if the multi-use facility doesn't come our way, then we're back to the original report that says, basically we need a new home for the seniors. So then I guess we would then separate them, and if seniors are deemed a priority, which they are high on the list, we would look for a separate housing, I think, for them, maybe fix where they are, but I think looking at it, it's better to move them someplace else. Then we'd move on to the pool, which is another, I think, priority, and then we would look at whether we could refurbish the pool in place or another building, and yeah, it becomes
what we want to tackle at first. If we can't put them all together, then we're back to